Hey, what's going on, everybody? Justin here, and in this video, we're going to be doing my second half of, I guess, what I was calling my 2020 book haul. I think it's like all the books I got from like mid-February or the beginning of March or something, once like quarantine started and everything, through June. So at least four or more months worth of books. I'll put a link to the first half, which is pretty much all the different kinds of books except these nature books. I think I picked up 13 nature books, or nature kind of conservation-ish related type titles. So yeah, we'll just get to those in a moment. Want to let you guys know I screwed up my mohawk, which is why I'm going to be wearing hats in like all my videos for the upcoming future. I hate it without my mohawk now, so yeah, I'm just going to have to like figure out how to wear hats, I guess. But I will be growing it back, just take some time. And then also, yes, I think I actually got sunburned. This is like the first time I've been burnt in like years. I went on a canoe trip. I invited my friend Tim. You might have seen him on some other of my videos and stuff. And let me know if you want to see like the worst ever booktube vlog ever, where we basically don't even talk about books much. But I think if you're lucky, you might get to see some like eagles and stuff. Might kind of overlay some of like the different nature things I guess I found like on the canoe trip or whatever. Let me know if any of you would like me to bother to edit that and put something together for my first ever like real vlog. As I say in that video, if I do put up, I've done this like 10 times and then never actually upload the finished product because I always think they come out terrible. But anyways, let's just get on to all the nature books that I picked up. Alright, first up is like a biography of Wangari Maathai. It's Unbowed, a memoir. She won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2004, and essentially her story is growing up in Eastern Africa. I believe it's Kenya. She's the first woman, I think, in Kenya to earn a PhD, and I think it was in ecology. But she is well known for starting the Green Belt movement, which is like a feminist, like political, environmental movement. So it's like a combination of a bunch of great things where essentially I think the main thrust is replanting native or indigenous forests, particular to different regions, and then employing the women of like local villages and towns to do most of the work and stuff. And this book kind of, like I said, it's like an autobiography of some of like the main highlights, I think, of sort of that like kind of political movement and all the kind of corruption stuff she had to like fight against in like the Kenyan government, I believe. And obviously it was not an easy process with everything that she went to. So it just sounds like a really interesting story. Like it's a good combination, like I said, of political activism as well as environmentalism. So that's really cool. And I'm looking forward to reading Unbowed. All right, next up I have two books by the same author. And the author is John Francis. The first one is Planet Walker, 17 Years of Silence, 22 Years of Walking. And then I found out after I had purchased this one, Planet Walker, he also has like a second volume, The Ragged Edge of Silence, Fighting Peace in a Noisy World. I actually have no idea what The Ragged Edge of Silence is. It's just that after reading a little, not this book particularly, but like reading kind of his story and stuff while I was waiting for this book to arrive, just he has such an interesting, cool story that I just wanted to obviously pick up the other book that he had written, just because I knew it was probably going to be good. Essentially, John Francis, in the, I believe it was the late 70s, there was like kind of a oil disaster, and after seeing and like helping out with kind of like the volunteer effort with kind of like, cleaning up the environment and animals and stuff, he decided to do like just walk around and like learn all about kind of like the world around him. And he took like a vow of silence for most of the time. As you can see, with 17 years of silence. Oh, 1971, excuse me, is right on the back. The San Francisco Bay oil spill. Like it's just like an interesting story where he, like I said, he just took a vow of silence and just like kind of vowed to like learn about the world around him and help others and stuff. Just sounded really, really cool. Just a crazy, kind of a crazy story. Like, I guess I've never heard of anyone taking a vow of silence for anything even remotely close to 17 years. So when I heard about that, I was like, yeah, I definitely have to pick that one up. And like I said, I picked up Ragged Edge of Silence just because I'm just anticipating this to be like a great book, and hopefully I was just, like I said, just anticipating the second book to also be great as well. Alright, next up we have Legacy on the Land. A black couple discovers our national inheritance and tells why every American should care, by Audrey and Frank Peterman. I bought two books on with everything that's going on like I read a lot of books about nature, and obviously me talking about kind of my canoe trip and stuff. I really enjoy the great outdoors and whatnot, but there is sort of a disparity in people of color and minorities not enjoying nature and the outdoors as much as just white people. And after finding that out, I wanted to find some books that kind of address the issue, and I got this book, and I will get the next one right after this one. And it's just different accounts on different possibilities of what these barriers possibly are, and obstacles that people of color and different minority groups have when dealing with doing like camping trips into like national parks and things like this, which is sort of what this book heavily focuses on. I read about the first half of this one, and it's really good. It's mostly written by Audrey, and this couple decided to go out and just kind of discover America and stuff through the national park system. And Acadia National Park, which is the national park in Maine, was the first one that they visited and stuff. But anyways, they traveled around the country and stuff. And the first part is kind of detailing just kind of their like thoughts and observations and kind of just all the cool things that they saw and whatever. And then the second part that I'm going to start in the month of August deals with kind of like their thoughts on how to improve things and what could be better, and how to like tear down some of those like kind of like hidden walls and stuff that other people face that not everyone knows about. So I thought this was kind of a cool idea. Plus with this one, it's actually, I'm pretty sure it's autographed by Audrey. It says "Love Audrey" right there. It was supposed to be a hardcover, but I guess I will trade a hardcover for an autograph book any day. So I thought that was pretty cool. Now the next one, dealing kind of with a similar issue, if I can see it. I don't know why I'm not seeing it. I guess maybe I didn't bring it up here. No. Anyways, I think it's called "Birding for Everyone" by John Robinson. I'll put an overlay right there. I did read this one a couple weeks ago. This is all about why minorities and people of color aren't representative, I guess, in the birdwatching community as much as proportionally they probably should be, since like based on surveys and whatnot, it's about the same proportion of different, like pretty much every like ethnic group like reports that they enjoy or would like to go bird watching and stuff like that. But people of color minorities make up a very, very small percentage of like actual active bird watchers and people that go on like bird watching tours and everything. And John Robinson is a prolific bird watcher himself. I think he's written a couple, or he's like helped edit like different field guides and stuff. He came out with software, I think in like the early 2000s or the late 90s, based like some computer software that like had like bird sounds and like bird identification guides and taxonomic references and stuff like that. So I thought that was really cool. And he kind of goes off and does like kind of like sociological like research by doing like surveys and interviewing people and whatnot, but also his kind of personal observations, being like, pretty much like a master bird watcher and whatnot. And he's actually pretty good friends with Canon Kaufman, who has like his own giant like Kaufman Field Guide series and stuff. So I think that's pretty cool. And he, like I said, I might do a review of that when I finish Legacy of the Land, kind of like a combination video on kind of dealing with these issues. It was definitely enlightening to see, just because, like I said, I live in northern Maine and I live in a very rural area, if you've seen any of my nature walks and stuff. So I guess it's different for me, like reading stuff like that from people like cities. Obviously, just being in the city, it's kind of a little bit more difficult, just kind of getting into nature and stuff, just like on a regular basis anyways. But all the different kind of misconceptions and perceptions that other people have to deal with, and obstacles and barriers that I guess I don't have to deal with, and I don't even notice sometimes others have to. So it's definitely good to kind of like open my eyes and explain to other people like what others have to go through just to experience nature, which I think everyone should. Obviously, just kind of like with my lifestyle and stuff, I'm always like a big fan of learning about nature and getting out there and just being like out there literally. So hopefully that book kind of on the second half of that book Legacy of the Land, hopefully the second half of that book will kind of complement why I'll jump into what John Robinson's called Birding for Everyone. Yeah. Okay. Totally probably just started screwing that up. I don't know why. I know why. I know exactly where it is. It's actually out on my nature shelf, but my nature shelf is in another room. Alright, so now let's go on to some of the other titles that I picked up, and hopefully I can remember exactly why I picked up, because I'm starting to draw a blank with Upstream. Searching for Wild Salmon from River to Table by Langdon Cook. Even in my nature section, I do have like a section basically just on fish. In particular, salmon is like kind of the maybe not what's the it's almost like the buzz fish, I guess, when it comes to like kind of fisheries ecology and fishery conservation right now, especially what this book deals with, the kind of the Pacific Northwest, the Alaskan and Canadian salmon run, Pacific salmon run. I think there's like 4 or 5 different species out there. Like there's what, Chinook, sockeye, king salmon. There's a couple others, but anyways, and it's all these books kind of deal with sort of how these salmon runs are kind of getting depleted, and what like kind of the international community is doing about it. And when I say international communities, is basically the United States and Canada. And I guess neither country really does a great job, and neither country really gets along well. You'd think it'd be like really easy just to like save the salmon, but not really. And actually, what a lot of salmon that around the world that people eat is actually like aquaculture farm salmon. And what I learned in another book that I read is it takes about 15 pounds of wild fish taken from the sea to be ground up into fish meal to make 1 pound of end product farm salmon. So it's a huge like net negative like on the environment and stuff. So technically, really, fishing wild salmon is better in the grand scheme of things if the population could sustain it, which it really can't. But anyways, like I said, it kind of goes on and on and on. But as like a vaguely pescatarian person, I'm always kind of interested in like learning about like fisheries and fishery ecology and stuff like that. So that's probably why I picked up Upstream. All right, so next up is War of the Whales, a true story by Joshua Horowitz. And I have read this one, and the main thrust of this book is all about kind of getting to the bottom of some massive beaching events that took place in the 2000s, largely dealing with what turned out to be new techniques of like Navy sonar, stuff like that. But dozens and dozens of whales had been beached and everything like that, which is obviously a devastating, kind of catastrophic event for some whale populations that have, already really depleted, and low numbers that are not rebounding from the days of whaling and whatnot. And it's kind of just getting to the bottom of kind of like that whole story, because obviously when you're dealing with like the United States Navy, you're going to be running into tons of problems. What was interesting is one of the main kind of like whale researchers was like a volunteer who used to be a Navy like sonar expert, essentially. So he was able to kind of get to the bottom of things and kind of put the pieces together a little bit quicker. And it was kind of like interesting seeing sort of that kind of combination come together. So yeah, it was definitely an interesting book. I encourage you guys to read it if that sounds like, whaling, like getting to the bottom of a whaling beaching event sounds important to you. Okay, next up we have Plight of the Living Dead, What Real Life Zombies Reveal About Our World and Ourselves by Matt Simon. I read his other book, which is The Wasp That Brainwashed the Caterpillar. And apparently this book is all about all the animals that parasitize other animals and turn them into zombies or make them do stuff for them, things like that. Like I just said with the wasp that brainwashed the caterpillar, there are animals that, like different species of animals that have evolved essentially just to kind of manipulate and control other species of animals. And it's kind of sad, but it's also kind of interesting to learn about. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I read the first like chapter, and apparently there's like a lot of species that do this. Like that, there's literally thousands and thousands of different animals that parasitize others. And then there's quite a few of them that, like I said, manipulate their brains in totally different fashions to kind of control what they do. And obviously some animals, like, either just kind of die when they, jump into water and they can't swim and they drown, or they kind of explode, or they go to a certain location and just kind of sit there and just starve to death so like the eggs can eat them and stuff. So it's all kinds of crazy stuff kind of going on. Interesting. Matt Simon also kind of writes like really kind of quirkily and funny. I think he's originally like a columnist for like Wired magazine or something. So he's got like kind of a witty style about him. Obviously, when you're dealing with something like Plight of the Living Dead with animals, you gotta have that kind of like sense of humor going on. All right, for another like fish book, we got Kings of the Yukon, One Summer Paddling Quest Far North by Adam Weymouth. I thought this was going to be more of a canoeing adventure book, but it's also largely tied in kind of with the Pacific Salmon Run that I mentioned earlier in Upstream. Wasn't like my favorite-ish book. Might do probably talk about a little bit more in my wrap up. Feel weird like having like it's been so long since I picked these books up. I've actually read like several of them for the book hauls. It's kind of a procrastinator. But yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about it probably in the wrap up. But I don't know. It was more. I think it was more the writing style, and I wasn't. There just wasn't like a main focus of the book because it was like part travel, part save the fish, and then part just like interviewing like people dealing with it in the industry and stuff. And the problem is just like none of those parts actually shined. I think it would have been different if like there was like one main focus and kind of just the other stuff was incorporated into it. But I do love the photograph there on the cover. This one is Inheritors of the Earth, How Nature is Thriving in an Age of Extinction by Chris Thomas. I'm going to tell you right now, the only reason I picked this one up is it's basically, I do believe in picking up books that like kind of challenge like your thought processes and stuff. When I read the subtitle, How Nature is Thriving in an Age of Extinction, I'm just like, yo, what? Like, because literally, there's so, like, literally it's like a quarter of the world's like biosphere is like endangered or threatened or in critical condition and stuff. So I'm just like, how can you ever have a book that says how nature is thriving in an age of extinction? I mean, of course there will be a few species that do really well, basically in the wake of humanity's like destruction on everything. But like I just don't. I have no idea what I'm getting into with this book. But like I said, it's gonna like I go against the grain from like everything else that I read. So I guess I'm just trying to like. I'm not sure, like, I don't know if there's, like, an argument that this person's really going to be making, or if he's just going to be trying to, like, point out the highlights of, what animals are actually doing, like, at least okay or something right now. But like I said, if it is, like, a whole kind of argument of, it's not really that bad, like I said, I'm hoping it's just kind of, like, challenge me and make me think harder about what I do believe in with, like, obviously with climate change and whatever, and obviously kind of the destruction of like the living world, essentially. So, like I said, I'm not exactly sure what I'm getting into with that one. All right, and then the last book here is Phenomenal: A Hesitant Adventurer's Search for Wonder in the Natural World by Lee Ann Hennion. And I saw this reviewed positively by a reviewer online that I enjoy, though I don't really know too much about it. I think it's a memoir of a woman who, based on like different circumstances in her life or something, decided to go on like a grand adventure and like go see the world and stuff like that, or the natural world. And I don't know, it just sounded like a kind of a cool travel memoir to me, with kind of like like I said, a kind of a environmental focus kind of going on with it. So it just sounded pretty cool, and that's pretty much all I know about it. So I will be reading that at some point. And then 2 more bonus books. I don't really have much to say about them, but it's like a sneak peek. Like a lot of, I don't know, you'll figure it out from the title. We got Writing Naturally, a down-to-earth guide to nature writing, and a nature writing handbook by the Sierra Club, a creative guide. I don't know, I don't know if that means I'm like, what, subconsciously, like when I saw those, it's like, maybe I should like pick those up or pick one up. And then when I saw that, like picked one up, I was like, yeah, I could find like another one too on sale. And I was like, I don't know. So I don't know if that means subconsciously my brain's like telling me to go write about nature or something. I don't know. I've never really done writing. Not 100% sure about that, but I might like just kind of peruse through those a little bit and see if anything sparks or takes hold or anything like that. But anyways, hope you all enjoyed the video. Let me know if you've read any of these authors or these titles, or if you have other nature book recommendations that you've read recently that you think I'd enjoy. I'm always on the lookout for nature ones, especially. I found a couple of really good ones based on you guys' recommendations, so thank you so much for that. Don't forget to check out all my other stuff, all the plugs. We got like Twitter and Instagram and the website and the Etsy shop, everything like that. Like, comment, subscribe, everything cool like that. So whatever you're reading, whether it's nature books or not, always remember, read victoriously.